district password and all that stuff at home, did you, on your computer?
Cities.
I don't think so either.
I didn't need to.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
Well, and honestly, you don't,
This is the key.
if I
Yeah, I
know
know,
about that,
yeah.
we did all of that, we kind of have created your account, we're
I
gonna
know.
have one, and
General
give me
purpose.
access to ours.
And then today when I read that
Right.
article in the paper about Stevens'
Oh,
encounter, I wasn't sure if it was even that big of a deal.
yeah, we're ready.
Well, I can't, I haven't got mine up yet.
1 minute.
What do I go and
Go,
do?
Happy to borrow
get
yours
that close up.
Mine refuses to.
Go to,
I wanna go.
just
Oh,
go to Google.
So we're gonna have the
Mhm.
Pocatello meeting first.
Go to Noodle first.
Should say,
instead of CTE?
yeah, forward.
Yeah, Wanda is in the hospital.
I'm not
She
sure.
just had a
There you go.
CT scan,
I've never had to sign in.
Oh,
her respiratory.
Is it just the way we do our regular person?
yeah, I think. I just, mine just came up.
Renee, I've never had to
Well, I'm
sign
glad I
in.
wasn't late then. Ended one meeting and.
It's right there, forward.
Renee caught you somewhere and
No,
said,
that's-
oh, we're shuffling things around today.
Oh, I had principal's meeting all
Oh, yeah.
morning, so that's where I've been.
It's time, you ready?
Well, I can't get in.
Renee's not quite ready, Dave.
It's doing a different thing on mine today.
What is your title? Health Trust?
So the president, CEO,
President.
just
Okay.
say CEO.
CEO,
It's
president.
just better, easier.
Okay.
Shorter.
I've never had to log in here. Is that what I do? Do you know? Right. I don't know why it did that. It's never done.
Well, because I set you guys up accounts and I shouldn't have.
Okay.
Ready? No. Start this, I hereby call this meeting to order. Welcome all of you. Thanks for being here. Our board members are all present except for Jake Gersh, who is excused, and that's fine. The first item on the agenda was the CTE presentation, but for reasons that we're gonna move that for another month, bypass that for another month. And so, first up today is Go Noodle.
All right, well, that's a great thing to start with. Go Noodle.
Go Noodle.
Go Noodle.
Okay.
Yep, you got it.
Okay.
We have with us today Sean Menchaca from Important of Health Trust, and they are able to provide Go Noodle Plus for our teachers in our schools. So I'm going to just let him just talk a little bit about that and kind of their rationale for help supporting that for our learners.
No,
He's the president and CEO of the Important of Health
yeah.
Trust.
So thank you. Good to be with you all. It's good to see you all. Thank you for having me and having the Go Doodle platform within the school district. I was curious to know how many of you all have done at either a wedding or some sort of gathering the YMCA dance. This is
Many
never-
times.
Many times. Right? Mr. Matson, I
No,
know
no.
you've seen it. You've seen
Okay,
it.
okay. All right, I'll give you that.
You should do it.
The reason
And
I
love
tell you that
macaroni.
is that's sort of my easy example to think about maybe what Go Noodle means for kids. Not so much just the fun, but the integrated academic components with terms of math and reading, and also things by getting kids up and getting them active, they have better behavioral health, behavioral problems. So what Go Noodle there are really three main benefits of Go Noodle are, and the two primary ones I think would be core mission of the school district. Number one is sort of increased academic performance, right? That's a huge component for the school district. The second one is to reduce behavioral problems, as I had mentioned. So those would be your primary components. our primary component is really about increasing physical activity. So we really have aligned incentives. So that would be probably, I would guess, I won't want to tell you your agenda, but probably a secondary component is you want academic performance, great behavioral issues, increased cooperation, right, with folks. And then you also want healthy students. So we have really good aligned incentives from that component. Some of the things that have happened with Go Noodle is that we have a 13% increase in healthy BMI. Now, typically when you think about BMI, you want it the other way, right? You think about decrease in BMI, but it's a 13% of kids get increase in a healthy BMI, so they lose weight or have the right kind of body component change. 50% better math scores and 23% more reading scores. This is really a very simple component of what Go Noodle does. It gets kids up and it gets them moving, and they have less behavioral problems and, of course, increased academic components. That's something that we have actually invested in, as Lori had said. Lori's kind of our champion, and we think it's important. I wondered if you all could tell me what you think the number one intervention in a person's health. Both, Doug, you can't answer because you probably know, but so the number one intervention for either an adult or a kid. What's the number one intervention for a person's overall health, both mental health and also just your body?
Exercise.
Get moving.
You guys are educated. It's good that you're.
We don't get graded on exercise, exercise, we get graded on. other
Yeah, I know. And that was,
But hey, I'm with you.
that's always been a struggle
Yes.
in trying to making sure we find some aligned incentives with the school district, because you are held to some, standards I'm not even familiar with. And so we wanted to find something that we could align with in terms of, and we think this is maybe one of those things. I would, of course, Doug and any of the teachers could opine, and if they have a different thought or additional thoughts, they could certainly offer those as well. Couple of things from just your own teachers are saying about Go Noodle. So Mick at Jefferson says he uses Go Noodle in combination with his brain breaks. And he says utilizing the mindfulness videos helps his students stay engaged and feel more confident with their test. And Michelle, who's a kindergarten teacher at Chubbuck, says Go Noodle noticeably reduces the behavioral problems in her classroom. Nicole at Ellis says Go Noodle's great for test prep and review time. She also likes to use it when her students get up and move around during class time. So we're going to show you Go Noodle, and Lori's going to fill in some gaps. I think for, I guess we're excited about providing it. I think what I'm asking from you is to, make sure that the team is fully engaged in this kind of effort and thinks about exercise and physical activity as a culture. And you just think about it in terms of when you strategically plan, that you find ways. I know there's funding cuts and lots of issues, but if we find ways to make sure kids have that activity time, if we can integrate it with their academic time, it's all the much better. So those are the two things I'm really looking for from you. But thank you for allowing me to be here, and then I'm going to let Lori take it over.
I'll just kind of fill in a couple of things. I know that on school visits, and you may have seen Go Noodle being used. I'm thinking specifically up at Gate City one time when I was visiting there, and it seemed like we had a board member there, and they were using Go Noodle, and it was, the two of you? Okay. Yeah, and they were using it to not only to move, but also to reinforce, the academic piece. So, if you're working on plural nouns and singular nouns, there's ways that Go Noodle, you can go into Go Noodle and be taking the curriculum, taking the standards, and then finding ways to reinforce them all. And that's through Go Noodle Plus, which, Port of Health Trust purchases for us. And so the kids knew it, and it was really exciting to see them accomplishing two goals there. They were moving, and they were also, reinforcing the learning that should be going on there. So it is an exciting program, and it's being well used in our schools. And I put in a chart there that I think is really shows a little bit about how much our teachers are using it and how much, and it's through encouragement from Port of Health Trust that we've been working with Bailey Thomason at Port of Health Trust, and she has sent out some incentives, and you'll notice that it takes that gentle pressure relentlessly applied to, remember, we've got this program here, we need to get our kids moving, and we know all of the benefits of it. And you can see here on that chart, in October we had we promoted it, we sent it out, we said there's a contest going, the teacher with the most who most minutes logged in, they'll get a prize. And then the school, if you have 100% of your teachers who are logged in, or the school that had the most teachers who logged in, everybody in the school would get a prize. And Jefferson won the prize in October. And you'll note there that 216 teachers logged in to Go Noodle. We have about 240 teachers, so that's pretty exciting to see that. And there we were, September of 2018, so last year where we were, May we had another incentive going, and you can see some increases. You know, November we had, you know, some time off there, lots of things happening, but still a good portion of our teachers are logging on and using Go Noodle with their students. And the one above, it shows the number of minutes that our students are using Go Noodle. So I know that Ms. Gephardt said, Go Noodle, what is that? So we're gonna click on it just so that you can see. Maybe we'll have you get up and do the Orion will click. So I don't know, you might wanna get moving here. So we'll get these guys going.
Banana meatball.
No, this is working on.
Yeah.
The kids standing up.
Turn it up. Nerdy by nature. Turn it up. Patterns in the air, patterns everywhere. Patterns made of shapes, patterns made of grapes. Patterns on the cheetah, patterns on my feeder. Patterns in the nap, patterns in this rap. That's right. Make a pattern, let's make a pattern. Alright, cool. Make a pattern, let's make a pattern. Okay, here's one. Banana meatball. Banana meatball. Banana meatball. Banana meatball. Banana meatball. Banana meatball. You got it. Turn it up now. Make a pattern.
Okay, so then you have, the students are all getting up, they're moving, and you know, we work tons on patterns in there, and they're having fun. And we see that, you know, over and over. It's a great brain break. There's some in here that maybe aren't as much on movement, but they're on mindfulness, like McMorgan was using up at Jefferson, and they were focusing in on breathing when you need that relaxation. So they can go in and they can select them, which ones they want to use, what purpose they want to use them for. If it's a transition, a great way to transition between one subject to another instead of just having some chaos, which often happens there, you know. So we're able to use it in lots of different ways, and I think the teachers over and over again will tell you that it does make a difference. So we appreciate Portneuf Health Trust being a partnership with us with that.
And just to add on to that, I think you can see at this point now, that's just a very small component of how you can introduce academics into this. They do math and they do reading with it as well. And some of the point is that we as a community can think about how we all row the same way. And this is one of those things, right? We get what we want, which is kids that are healthier, and we get what you want, which are kids that perform better and behave better. It's incredibly great synergy and a great project from our perspective. It's something we're happy to invest in. And I hope that the board will value this and think about this strategically long term.
It looks great to me. I mean, it made me want to stand up.
I know it. I could see you getting in there, getting ready to go. Well, and I'll make a point of when, I know we've seen it at different times in, you know, when we've done our board visits, but making sure that you see it. That one classroom up at, it was our extended resource room at one of our schools that, oh my goodness, those students were just into it. That was more fun that day than anything I've had in a long time, so. Yeah, but used across all grade levels.
Trinity loves it.
Does Trinity love it?
And a great way to incorporate movement into learning and put them together and help kids stay focused and.
Absolutely.
So.
I think we went into a 5th grade too, and it was customizable, that they used their spelling words and kind of like you were just describing at the beginning, Sean, with the YMCA. And then I think there were some prepositions or prepositional phrases, and it was under and through and over. And so we were moving. And then there was another challenge where we were kind of an Indiana Jones simulation, and we were climbing and up and down. And yeah, I mean, I broke a sweat literally when I was doing this activity. So I can attest to the great things that it does both on all 3 levels that you've described. Yeah.
And I think a key is it's really easy to use. You know, we have screens in our classrooms and all, so that really does help, but it's easy because the days really, are packed with a lot of things, and if it were hard to use it, it would not be as useful, so.
For kinesthetic learners, it's probably invaluable,
Mhm.
but it also means, for a long time, we used to talk about how do we get enough PE in for kids. So this is,
That's a great point.
Mhm.
And there's been a lot of pressure, and I know, I followed the, I don't know that I know your plight, but I know how difficult it is with all the issues the district faces, in terms of financial and sort of, this is one of those things in a way I was thinking about this, how we're, what do you guys think an average 8-year-old does today? Think about what we did when we were 8 years old. We met at the park, we went climbing, or we went out, or whatever it was, right? Not the same thing that an 8-year-old does today. An 8-year-old today oftentimes spends time on their games or videos or screen time, and what ends up happening, I'm sort of getting to the district part, is that oftentimes is we're relying on the schools to solve the societal problems. I understand that, but I think this is one of those things that hopefully, again, aligns really well and help us work towards solving that inactivity issue that we really have with kids. Think about the old days where we actually rolled the window down in our car, right? It sounds funny, or we have engineered everything, all that movement out of our lives, and that isn't good for kids or adults, right? I think it's some of the issues that you see in terms of if you find the mental health issues with kids, they're just not moving the way they used to. So anyway, I hope I've imparted the importance of that, and you'll think about it as a strategic issue, and we'll try to help you. We'll try to be part of the solution with you.
Thank you.
Well, and Kina, I would like to thank you too for sponsoring this.
We'll keep doing it.
It's been great to work with you. It's been fun.
And thank you to the staff for just being, I know there's one more thing on their plate, but I think they kind of realize they've got the right leadership that understands why this is important.
Yes. Yeah.
All right,
Yes, well, thank you, Sean.
thank you.
Thanks for
Or he's gonna stay here for a few minutes.
Yeah, I have to sit here for a few
Okay.
minutes.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, to you, thank you, thanks for coming. All right, next, the 21st Century Grant. So we have due our grant, that's the Hawthorne, Tindoy, Green Acres, Wilcox, and Tyhee 21st Century After School Grant. So, we started to think about how do we want to approach this grant? Do we want it to look exactly the way that it's always looked, which has been very successful. We're able to get great attendance. It serves a fantastic need in our schools for our after-school program. But we also were challenged with another bit of information and a bit of data that kind of came through. When we rolled in with the iStation in the fall, and we looked at what our kindergartners, our incoming kindergartners, where they were on iStation and what percentage were at benchmark, we have a population of our students that in two of our schools, they were Tindoy and Green Acres, only 20% of our students came in scoring benchmark, which was, the district average is 30%. But that just kind of ate at me, and I thought, what in the world can we do here to help our students before they're ever our students? What can we do? And so Kelsey Case and I, who is the after-school coordinator, were visiting, and there's an opportunity through the 21st Century Grant. We can include preschool in there. And so, we'd had some discussion, and so that seed just kind of started to grow. And I started to think, what can we do? And so we started to explore some possibilities. And so we can include in this grant, the one that we're writing right now, a center that is a preschool center. And then you can have up to 4 centers. And so, and one of those could be a preschool. And we're just thinking, we may want to explore this. During the day, we could have it have our preschoolers come during the day for a couple hours during the day. You can have transportation provided through the 21st Century After School Grant. But we're thinking this may be a way to really help that population of students so that we're not at 20% coming in, and then we have to play this catch-up game with them. So what we're hoping that we can do, and we're working on it, we're exploring it right now, and you'll have to be approving it at some point, so I'm hoping you give your input, is that looking at having Tindoy serve as a preschool, they have an extra classroom in the afternoon and having it be for preschoolers. We're not sure of numbers, maybe 17, but between that Green Acres and Tindoy area, and they would service preschoolers. They would still have an after-school program, but we could combine students from Tindoy to go over to Green Acres for an after-school program. So we would have an after-school Green Acres, it'd be a Tindoy Green Acres one for grades, the rest of the students already in our elementary schools, kindergarten through 5th grade, and then still apply for the centers at Wilcox and at Tyhee. We haven't gone this route before. We've gone the same route over, and our grants look very similar. We take a little different twist to it, maybe STEM, or maybe it being, we did the arts program, but, we thought, we need to look at ways that we can start helping our students and maybe making some differences there, because there definitely is a need, and this may be a way to answer that need. So, does that sound?
Yeah,
sure.
sounds good.
So this is after school now and not, because we've done some other things in the summertime.
Yeah, the summertime, so we still have to offer with our kindergartners.
Pre-kindergarten.
Right, and so we would still do that. That's just because that is more just a behavior. Let's get them in, let's get them, so they're only there from, about up to 8 days. And so you really can't do a ton with the academic piece of it. You can do this is how we sit, this is where we, how you listen to a story. This is in some of those kinds of things, but we don't get to the depth that we would. So this would be in addition to that.
And it would be a more structured curriculum kind of.
Mm-hmm. We can see, and as we've talked about it, and Gretchen Kinghorn has been a part of the discussions on what it would look like. But it would be very much the same. They'd come in, they'd be doing their alphabet. We'd work on oral language. We'd work on fine motor. We'd work on those skills that we know are deficits when they come to kindergarten. And so it would look like a very much. Every day, this is what they do. A lot of music, a lot of rhyming, those exposure to language, just making it very much not like, let's put you on this program while you're there, but very intensive with talking to them, working on colors, working on shapes, but a lot of just developing that oral language piece along with their fine motor skills and their pre-reading skills. I think it's really exciting to think about, what we could do and the impact that we could make there.
So Lori, are you gonna take kids from all over the district, or is this just the Tindoy Green Acres area?
Right now, we're going to start with the Tindoy
Are they
Green
the
Acres
most
area.
needy?
Right, both of those schools came in at 20%, only 20% of our students at benchmark.
Okay.
And then, Lewis and Clark a little more. So if there's somebody over there, we could bring them in that, in that geographic area. We could draw that and include them in there. But we're thinking if we start with that, we'll probably have plenty of learners. It'll be, the challenge will be getting out and trying to find where those learners are. So we'll have to be using some very creative methods to do that. And then that would still leave us one center there, and then 3 others for a maximum of 4 centers is what you can apply for. And that one can look different, but it'll be its own center.
I know when I've reviewed iStation's scores, I've seen certain areas, that seem like they need more help,
Mhm.
and of course that's in school, not necessarily preschool.
Right, and I was looking like at this, I took the September scores and all, and that's where we kind of
Okay.
made that. And, it's, a determination we had to make. But you won't want to get it too big because,
Right,
and that won't.
right.
And there's only so much, the funding only goes so far, so we have to look at that for a center.
Well,
So-
begin
It's a good
somewhere.
experiment, I think.
I think so, I think it,
I think there's, the things I've seen about that preschool just really preps them for
mhm.
kindergarten and moving on at a faster pace.
I really believe so. Dr. Howell? Oh,
No.
No.
okay. All right, and the next thing then is the calendar. So you have in your packet, there's 2 different ways to view the calendar. Now, this is the one, we're having to make things ADA compliant. So this will be the way that we'll have to have it looking on posted on our website. But you can look, we have included this one in there for you so that, because it looks more familiar. So, and Mr. Mattson, you can help, we had a great discussion, didn't we, the other day when we,
Sure we did.
when we worked on creating the calendar. So I'm just going to highlight a few things on this calendar that we have, that a recommendation for you. So you'll note here that we'll start in August on the 17th. It's a full week of, teacher orientation. We put that day, we voted on it, that day that it was the, to be a non-directed day that was added on. We had a discussion about where to put it, and we again decided to put it at the beginning of school. So it leaves a full week there with professional development, staff orientation, and then a non-directed day. School will start for students on the 24th, and that's 2 full weeks before Labor Day. So that's kind of, we haven't done that for a while. Then you'll note in October, that's where another thing looks a little bit different. Instead of having the 2 days off for, we've had them off for parent-teacher conference and professional development. And traditionally, that's been there because of those state conference days for different subject areas, which they're getting away from more and more, and many of the school districts do not take those days off. So what we've done is had the second there be a parent-teacher conference day. So that's on a Friday. We'll probably go Thursday evening so that we can accommodate working parents, and then go Friday half-day, and then teachers will have the other half of Friday off to make up for the evening of the Thursday evening.
So shouldn't you have something marked on Thursday evening, or can you, where it's not in the daytime?
No, it's in the evening, yeah.
You
Yeah.
can't. You
Well,
can't do-
it didn't, we'll communicate that through, I think that, I don't know, what do you think?
I mean, because the intent is there, and.
Right, I guess we could mark it on here, the first with
Students attending. but
full day
conferences in the
conferences in the
evening.
evening.
Yeah.
Yep. We can do that, in fact, and we can do that on this one, especially, it'll be
Yeah.
really easy to do that. We're trying to, so we'll work on that and I'll have that for you for next week, and then you can
Because
see
you
if
might
you
just
like
have
it.
some that say, well, why do they get the half-day?
Right, and I wanted
You
a
know, and-
conference
and-
Friday afternoon.
And not
Mhm.
see that they're not really getting enough, they're just moving it to nighttime on Thursday. you
Yeah,
know.
I'll make sure that we make a note of that, and then when I bring it to the board next week for approval, you can see how it looks. How about
Yeah.
that? Okay? And then, see, we have the same thing going in January this year, so it's communicating that out, but I can see where that could be confusing, so we'll add that. Election Day will be a professional development day.
So,
We took that professional development day from the October one and then moved it to the election day. And then you'll note that there's 2 days off, 2 days of school before the Thanksgiving holiday, so that's like this year. 2 weeks at Christmas. And then another parent-teacher conference day on the 15th of January, which we'll note there because it'll be the same way with a Thursday evening and then a Friday half-day. So we'll note that there. And then we have Martin Luther King Day off, President's Day off. There's a record day in February, which is also the end of the try. We didn't mark, the end of the try is the 25th. What we did on this calendar is just put it as the end of the try and then record day, no school. Does that seem to make sense without color coding? We didn't want parents to see it as another day off, or does that look okay? Okay, 2 weeks in March or no, not 2 weeks in March, 1 week in March. And then you can see at the end of the school, the 26th is the last day of school. And then we kind of moved some things around. The 27th is, the 28th will be a checkout day. Now, Sue Pettit went to her principals, and they would like for graduation day to be on the 27th, which is a Thursday. So this is a time for your input on that. I know that does involve you a lot. They said that it's easy, they expect their teachers to be there. It's easier to get them there on that day. That is a record day than it is on the checkout day. Anything else on the rationale?
Pretty much once teachers have checked out, they're done, and so
So that morning, they're supposed to be in school doing records and blah, 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 and then be at graduation at noon for those that
Just-
affects.
So it'll be typical. See, this year, for the last few years, they've done it on a record day also.
Okay,
So I don't, however they do it there would be the same way.
okay.
And then teachers would come after Memorial Day in order to check out. But we were able to work it so that the checkout would be before Memorial Day. And that was by having a full week at the beginning. But we wanted to get your input and thought, I know that for lots of years, we did have it on Thursdays. I know when my own children graduated, they were Thursdays.
I like it better than Monday.
Yeah.
That's for
Yeah,
sure.
we know. That was not so, yeah.
Or the
Anyway.
Monday after Memorial Day.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah. All right. We'll make those changes on there, and then I'll bring it to the board. And if there's any other recommendations that we could mock up here for you, that we would be willing to do that. All right.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next on the agenda is an update on Phase 2 of the Pocatello High School project. And Bart, you're gonna- and Ed, and Jacob. Correct?
Oh, this will be fine. Up here, we're getting it up there right now.
He feels more comfortable back there, I guess. Thank you, Chairman Mattson, members of the board, and Superintendent Howell. We're grateful to have a few minutes on your agenda today to talk about Phase 2 of Pocatello High School. As you know, we have completed Phase 1 of Pocatello High School, and we have had just fabulous reports back from the public and those who have visited the high school of what a difference that makes to the front entrance and handicapped accessibility and all those sorts of things. And in the meantime, as we've been completing Phase 1, we've been working very diligently on Phase 2. And let me just tell you that the success of a project largely is determined by how much planning you put into it from the very beginning. And we have crawled under the tunnels of Pocatello High School. We've been in the ceiling areas. We've been in every little nook and cranny. It's a good thing to be able to say you can do this and this will work, but when you really look into how you're going to make that happen, it's not as easy. And so we have spent a lot of time, weeks, in the planning stages, trying to look at how we're going to make this function and be a wonderful project for the Pocatello Chubbuck School District. I'm grateful for Hummel for their expertise and for their dedication in looking at the details here. And so with that, we thought that we would come together as we're now at one of the final junctions, if you will, of doing the plan review with the city of Pocatello, which requires their approval, and then also getting the construction documents ready so that we can bid out hopefully about mid-February, at the very latest, early March. So with that, I think I'm going to turn the time over to Jacob and let him go through a little bit of what we've been doing, show you some things on colors and patterns and some of the designs that we have come up with. And then the part that I think will be very exciting will be to go through kind of a 3D model approach that they have here that will give you kind of a virtual tour of Pocatello High School, the new addition, as we put that together. So, Jacob, go ahead.
All right, thank you, board. Let's go ahead and dive right into this. So as Bart said, we'll go ahead and talk about the interior finishes first. A lot of the exterior finishes we've worked together before and how you want it to look. We were matching the school in a lot of different instances, but yet still staying true to the previous nature of it, but making sure it has a 21st century or look that in certain areas of the connector and other parts of it. But what you have not seen is really the interior and what we're looking to do on the inside of it. So we're going to go through some of these finishes that we're looking at. So paint-wise, we're going to, take key elements from the existing Pocatello High School mascot and their colors. So we will have, the general paint to be this polar bear whites, you can see right here, and then we'll have accent colors of this blue which we're taking a similar blue in from the headdress of the mascot. And this will be in key areas along in little nooks of where the classrooms are going to be, and also some of the columns and structural elements that'll be painted to help bring some brightness and some fun color into the project. The laminates, so this is going to be the cabinets, the countertops. This was actually previously decided from phase 1, and we are going to carry that over into it. For the vertical, you're going to have this maple face, and then for the actual writing or working surfaces, we're going to have this gray cotton material right there. I'm sure all of you have seen already the phase 1, and it looks fantastic, and we're going to just carry that over to have that keep the same look and appeal to it. Now, things that you have not seen, however, are going to be what kind of flooring materials we are going to be using for this. We are going to be using a luxury vinyl tile. We're not going to be, we're concerned about carpet because of the harsh winters that we have here, bringing in all that snow, all that salt, and basically durability. Luxury vinyl tile, it has the ability to not have to wax it. It's very strong, very durable. Many schools have gone this route just because it is less maintenance, but yet it still gives you a lot of options and variety in color. So we are going to have 4 different colors in there. We're going to have a main field color of the lighter gray, and then we're going to have accents throughout of this smoke, this blue sapphire, and this red Roma. And then you'll see how we've laid this out. So what we like to do is be able to utilize this, these LVT tiles in a pattern that reflects in a way what's happening in Unit 1, and which was currently done there with the flooring, but yet put a twist to it and bring some highlights in the color. On the first floor, we intend to have this gray, you can see the light gray feel with scattered throughout with this dark. And then we're going to have the next main accent color to be this blue. And you'll also see that we have this red speckled throughout. So this will go throughout the first floor. And then within the classrooms, you see we bring some of that blue into it to, give a little bit more pattern and color into the classrooms as well. Now the second floor, this was done, we haven't laid out the second floor per se, but this is going to be the exact same pattern. So imagine taking that, and on the second floor, we inverse the blue and the red. So you'll see that we have more red on the second floor opposed to the blue, and then the blue on here is a secondary highlight. Now this helps us because it helps differentiate the floors and help really with wayfinding as well, but also gives it a fun little twist so that hey, where are you meeting? I'm on the red floor or on the blue floor. Just little fun things here and there. So now the tiles for the areas that we're looking at, we're going to have tile within the wash stations that are outside the restrooms and within the restrooms as well. Now we are going to use a subway tile. We're going to use 3 different types. The main general one is going to be a white. Then we'll have an accent one of the blue. And this is the same idea. On the first floor, we're going to have the blue tile. On the second floor, we're going to have the red tile. So here in these images, you'll see that we have where it's just plain white is our white tile, and then these patterns is going to be the blue tile. And we'll do that for the first floor and second floor. Now what we're going to do is also look at the stairs. So if you recall, we have a wonderful stair highlight within it, in which we're going to have some bench seating around it. And then also throughout the hallway, we're going to have some bench seating. And we grabbed this image for a school that's just down the street from here, a little further up Northern Idaho Falls, because this has some similar elements that we wanted to show you. And we feel that's better to show you an actual image opposed to speak to it and show you just in the drawings. So what we're going to be doing is within the stairs, you'll notice that on this image on the right-hand side, you can see all the way through. These are perforated risers. So it's a metal that has perforations in it, and this allows you going to be able to see through. So that students, as they, you can be able to visually see them, as you can see on the back side on this image to the left. Through here, you can see the windows outside. Students, on ours, of course, it's a different scenario, but our entire area is going to be covered with like a bench area. Students will be able to gather and hang out. And then we're going to come in and we're going to highlight these runs through here with color as well. So that's what we anticipate doing, but utilizing the blue that was picked for Pocatello High School. Then for the handrails, what we're going to do is we're going to need to bring some warmth into the school. You'll notice that we're going to have, our standard metal handrail that's required, but on top of that, we're going to do a wood cap that helps bring some warmth into it. Now, to bring further warmth into it, we're going to be capping our benches with that wood as well. So a slightly different design, but a similar concept to which we're showing this concrete footing, And then we're going to have the wood cap in which they can bring some warmth into the school, and that way the kids don't have to sit on cold concrete. They can sit on something a little bit warmer, but yet a durable material.
Let me just interject a comment. One of the things that we discussed as we looked at this commons area and the informal seating where the students would come and gather and serve as a commons area, initially we had talked about carpet, you know, on these areas here. So it would typically be a concrete floor with carpet on top of there. But, you know, as we visited with the high school administration, several of the teachers, and as we've looked at what's been done in many of the other schools, we just felt that carpet is so hard to maintain. In Pocatello High School, as you know, we have a very small cafeteria downstairs in the basement. It only holds about 200, 250 students at one time. And so largely, the cafeteria is going to become much of Pocatello High School in this new addition here on either the main floor or the upper floor. And as we visited about that, we just felt that a hard surface, concrete, mixed in with the wood tones and things like that would be much more enduring in regard to maintenance and just keeping things clean and in a new type condition with the school rather than the carpeting overall. So that's one of the reasons why we went this direction. And in fact, Alan Spidell and myself went up and visited Thunder Ridge High School in Idaho Falls, and saw, in fact, some of these pictures may even come from there, but that's what we saw there. And that school's been in operation now for 2 years and is holding up very, very well under student use in the commons areas and so forth. And so we feel very good about some of the durable type surfaces as opposed to maybe a warmer carpet that is much harder to keep clean and maintain over the longevity of the school district. So
I think my concern there is, and maybe you do this with mats or something in wintertime with snow coming in on the tiles or whatever.
The walk-off
out-
tile.
The slickness, you know, from
We-
just, and so are you just planning on putting down mats to absorb some of that moisture coming in, or?
I'll let Jacob talk about that, but we do have walk-off areas, I believe, in those areas where you come into the school. That helps maintain the tile surface and the cleanliness throughout the whole facility, so.
Okay.
Yeah, so exactly as Bart said, going back to this floor plan, you know, you're going to have a mat right here that's going to come in. We will carry this LVT in. One discussion that we had during phase one was, you know, in other places you provide like a walk-off mat, which is a material, you know, like a carpet, but much rougher and more durable. But the concern here is, you know, with all the snow, all the salts come in, it just really tears it down really fast. So by bringing the LVT into here and being able to have a portable mat that you can come and clean and have a service come and take and replace when it needs to be, you can have one here, and then on just the outside, depending how wet it is, we can definitely address that issue, which
Okay.
bringing about the moisture. So we'll have it here, and then of course this main area into the auditorium and palace. So we do have a secondary stairs. This is going to be the stairs that are within the classroom block. This one is not going to be as grand. It doesn't need it. It helps, you know, there aren't going to be many students around there. So what we're doing is we're going to do a standard rubber tread with an integrated rubber riser as well. And then there's also one thing you'll start noticing is they're going to start noticing a visual transition strip so that people who are visually impaired, they can actually start seeing that, and it helps prevent a lot of trip hazards as well. So you'll start seeing that in every single school in the near future. Acoustical panels for the ceilings. We are going to use a standard acoustical panel that you guys have been using in your existing schools. It's the same one that we used for phase one. It's going to be this USG radar, just a nice clean system. You know, nothing crazy special about it, just a great system that works really well. And then on the and within the commons, a lot of that area is exposed deck. We want you guys asked to have more of the industrial look, not only just to help save money, but also, you know, to give it a nice, fun feel to it. So what we're going to do is we're going to be providing these Armstrong acoustic panels. You might have something seen similar, but basically it's really similar to this, but a thicker, more denser that attaches directly to the panels. This, we have the ability to put in different patterns, and we can paint it accordingly. It is paintable, so if we want to bring some more color into the school, that way we can as well. Within the bathrooms, we are going to introduce this tile. This is like a concrete tile, extremely durable. The nice thing about this is that it holds up extremely well and gives a fun feel to it. And we're going to be coming back to the subway tiles along the walls wherever the wet plumbing features are at and up and around it. So essentially what you're going to have is your subway tiles all the way around here and back again, and then also along this wall near the wash station as well, to tie it all in together. And then once again, blue on the first floor, red on the second floor. So those are the finishes. Do you guys have any questions on interior finishes before we jump into the 3D model? No?
You mentioned that you have
Yep,
more.
and we have left behind, we are going to leave behind some of the finishes that we have. You have almost all the interior finishes, a lot of the exterior finishes, and we'll go ahead and leave those behind, and we can pick them up later. But we just, you know, for your time's sake, just let them be and let you guys have fun in them. So that right there, it's a great question. Let me go to the 3D model and I'll explain that. So here you'll see we have the 3D model right here. I can zoom around it, go around wherever we want. What I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of walk you through how a student would approach this and go through certain areas. But what you're looking at right there is basically kind of something similar to what is on existing Unit 3. So on Unit 3, you have a lot of brick, you know, tying into it. But in order, you know, because this Unit 1 is a beautiful school and it was done at a time in which the craft was available, and all this work over here in the front was is terracotta. Unfortunately, our budget cannot meet that. So what we are going to be doing, excuse me, is how do you create something that's going to be similar in look but at a much more cost-effective price? So similar to what was done at Unit 3, this was like an EFIS or stucco system right here. So that right there is going to be coming along. That material is a stucco type drive-it system that's coming through here and up on these upper panels that are going to be pre-manufactured already materials that you can cover over. And that's a little bit different than a standard stucco system because you'll notice there's some bits in it to look at more like rock. So that one was designed and picked to look more like the existing terracotta on Unit 1 without the price, of course, of pure terracotta. So that's what that material is through here and these bands all the way across. All right. So here we're looking at this view of Unit 4 that we're calling it. So the students will be able to come in through here. There's an entryway right here. The main entryway is going to be right here. There's an entryway on the back side, and of course there's an entryway on the other side towards the palace. So here coming in through on here, you'll see this is the entry on the palace side. The palace is on our left-hand side right here. We have our doors coming in. You can either go on through into the new commons area or the auditorium or into the palace. You'll see our classroom block to the right-hand side. In the background, you'll see Unit 1. And then this is just a more straight-on look going through. You can see this is the existing building of the palace right here.
Now, aren't you saving that design up above the?
Exactly, yep. So behind it, so you'll notice that the most beautiful work on this auditorium piece right here is going to be actually spout right here, and we're covering that up, right? So previously, if you recall, we were actually previously going to go blow through into that room and to have that be the connection into Unit 2. The issue was we didn't want to get rid of that beautiful work. So if you recall, what we did instead is we're going to connect into the Unit 2 1960s edition. And so it allows us to give a straight through pass, and then we can keep all that beautiful work. And you'll be able to see that as we go through the model, a better understanding of it.
So what we ended up doing, Mrs. Craner, is when we came to that brick wall that you see right there, and then you would turn right and go back in through there, we ended up opening up that brick wall, which was a classroom. That's an art classroom, going straight in through there, and then preserving all that wonderful decor that you see on that outside. That's one of the most artistic parts of that whole building right there above that auditorium area. And so we went through that classroom, took that art classroom, a portion of it anyway, and then turned and then preserved that other part. And you'll see that as he goes through this.
Okay.
So coming through here, that's going to take you is imagine a student coming in and walking into this area right here, into this main entry. So coming in, they walked in the back. You'll see, looking out here is the main street. You can come see here. This is our main stairs that we're talking about. We'll have perforated risers, so you'll be able to see all the way. And this right here is going to be the stadium or bench seating, which the students can gather. There's going to be a concrete with a wood on top, and there's going to be outlet ports for them so the kids can charge their devices. And then you can either go up. Yeah, gotta love those devices, right?
So one of the things that we saw when we went,
Noodling, I take it. That's good.
you know, obviously, kids they don't survive without their cell phones, right? So in a lot of the modern schools that you see now, in some of their commons area and their bench areas where they have informal seating, they will build the electrical and the USB ports right into that electrical outlet, so they can just plug their phone in, charge their phone up, that sort of thing. The school already has Wi-Fi throughout the whole thing, through the classroom, the hallways, commons area, et cetera. So as they gather, they can plug in their devices, they can plug in their laptops, work on homework if they want to do something like that there. So it's just a nice amenity to have. In the event that that technology becomes outdated, typically you'll just replace that receptacle with a new plug-in device and be on your way. So it'll be really a nice feature that presently doesn't exist anywhere in Pocatello High School except for the media center, I think.
So when you're in here, you can see coming to our left, you can go down the new connector to Unit 1, or you can go up the stairs or down the main commons area. One thing you're noticing, as you guys know, that we are having an exposed ceiling. So we're going to have our wide flanges and structural components open. And we are going to highlight those in regards to not bright colors, but bringing that blue just to really emphasize it. And, you know, in a way, it's a great teaching tool, too, to let students know how buildings are put together as well. So let's go to the next view. So this is within that same area. This is right when you walk into those doors, you'll start seeing. And just imagine a bunch of students spending, you know, during their lunch hours, hanging out here before classes, coming in here and being in a real big gathering area. Across from it is the other entry point into the commons. And then coming down the corridor, you'll see this is the connector into Unit 1. So coming down, you elevate the steps up to it. And then on the right, you can either go up the steps or go directly to your right into the elevator. That'll give you ADA access into this, obviously this floor that we're on right now, but you go up 6 feet to the Unit 1's first floor, and then up to the second floor of this, which connects you to the floors for both Unit 1 and Unit 4.
So the elevator is in that part?
Yep, let me show
Just
you.
to the right.
So we are currently right here, looking down this way right here. So the elevator is exactly right here.
Right
This
there.
is right here.
Okay.
So and then this is just another view looking from underneath the stairs, looking out into it.
And then all this middle area that you're showing, this hallway,
Correct. Yep.
that
This is all.
you've fixed that with the city, where you're covering the,
Yeah, you're talking
Yeah.
about this portion right here, this connector.
right,
So you can see right here, I'm gonna come on the back side of this. So you'll see the existing sewer line right there. The ideal situation is if we were able to shift this connector over into, so aligned directly with these existing stairs out of Unit 1. Unfortunately, due to that sewer manhole that we cannot cover up, because they need to have access and service to it, we had the most cost-efficient way to do it was to shift it over into the existing area where it's EC right now. So, yep, currently we are working with the city and are addressing that issue. So,
okay.
we got their blessing to move forward, so we should be good. So this next view is all the way on the other side. So imagine we were looking down this hallway here. Now we are looking at basically this is going to get into the pit and the auditorium. So these are the stairs going up. So looking down, you'll see we have that bench seating all the way down. Once again, they'll have outlets throughout it. And then we'll also be able, this is the entry into the classroom block right there. On the right-hand side, you'll start seeing some of the student store area right there. And right behind us is Unit 3 or the Palace.
And those are into classrooms?
So this, yes,
So the classrooms don't have, that's just straight wall? There are windows in the doors?
within this view right here, yeah. So right now, what happens is these right here all just there are doors into some areas right there behind here, but these are just walls right now. One of the reasons why is because these buildings existing Unit 1 and Unit 2, they're older buildings and they're not fire sprinklered. In order to get this to attach to the building, normally what would happen is you'd have to come in and fire sprinkler the entire campus. Anything that's touched, you'd have to do that, and that's extremely cost prohibitive. There is something in the International Building Code that allows us to delegate what they call a pedestrian walkway. So our common space in the connector, we're calling a pedestrian walkway. And whatever that pedestrian walkway touches needs to be a 2-hour fire rating. So if there is a fire that ever did occur, it needed to withstand 2 hours of that fire before it penetrated into the assembly. And so this whole entire assembly coming all the way across is a 2-hour fire rating. And also this one right here, the unit 2 and 1 already have a 2-hour fire rating just because they're made out of brick, concrete. They inherently have that. This, however, does not, obviously, because it's our new build. So this is going to, the less openings we can have in here, the better, because it's less expensive. Because if you have openings within doors, that means the glass has to be fire rated. All the door assemblies have to be fire rated. So we definitely don't want to have too many openings into this wall assembly. And then there's also the fact that if we don't want too many openings, just because these are classrooms right here, that we don't want the distraction area. And one other thing is half of this wall is used for structural purposes as well, so we don't have too many options for that.
And so the other side is the original brick
Yeah.
and that on the building.
Correct, yep, exactly. So essentially, coming through here, it's basically this wall down all the way is exposed brick, and we'll be able to get a better view of that with some other views that we have, but yeah. So this is gonna be the new ramp coming up that connects, the ADA ramp that connects into the auditorium and the pit, and with the existing brick on the left-hand side.
So there has been some discussion about these large empty walls, maybe doing some sort of large graphics, maybe bringing in some of the heritage of Pocatello High School. We're yet to work through those details, kind of see how the bids come in and see how much we have. But there are some opportunities to do some large graphics on some of these blank
Right.
walls. And I think to energize the space, that might be an option that we would talk to you and Bart about as well.
Well, and Lisa.
Yeah.
And so another option that we've discussed too is this is a big wide wall, and these are seating areas for quite a bit of students. Does this become an extended learning area outside of the classrooms in which teachers can gather for students, or a small little assembly area? So that's just an option as well, in which this becomes a screen and students can gather. Projection, yep. So this right here is going to be right within when you walk into the classroom. We're going to start, you'll see that we have a highlight in the ceiling where it goes up a little bit and a little soffit down below. This area where my cursor is at right now is we're going to have a pop-out of color and all these openings into the classroom. And then this is the secondary stairs up into the second floor of the classroom block. Nothing crazy special here, just a standard corridor in which students will get in and out of their classrooms. Just wanted to show it to you just because, remind everyone that the classrooms are the most important thing of this building, right?
Well, how wide is that?
It is 8 feet. Actually 10 feet, sorry. So it looks, in the 3D, it looks small,
narrow.
you're right, but it's plenty wide. And there are no lockers in between too, so you don't have to worry about students coming in and opening up lockers and taking up 2 feet on each side or one side. So this view right here is actually, let me show you. If we come in and we're coming on the back side, there's a staircase right inside of here. Basically, we're sitting on top of that staircase and looking down into the connector area, and you can see this was that grand staircase that we were looking at earlier with the benches, and then the main entrance is on the left-hand side and the secondary entrance is on the right-hand side. And to get to the elevator is just right over here to our left. So come down the stairs and walk to the classroom block through here, or students come up the other way to walk into Unit 1. So, and then this right here is going to be, this is the entrance from in between the palace. You'll see that we did a straight on look earlier. You can see this is the existing entryway into the palace. You'll see our ramp coming up through here, our bench seating, our stairs to remain, and then our existing structure, and then our students' store/ticket booth on the right-hand side. And to get into the palace is just slightly up. I just went too far, sorry about that. Is to our left right there. And we'll just move on to there. Didn't want to work out there. So let's go to the second floor next. So the second floor, we're going to take, you'll see coming up, the students come up the stairs. You have these really nice views looking out, and then being able to either come to Unit 1 through the connector or down through the classroom block through there. Within the same area, just looking the other way, you start seeing this is the existing Unit 2 brick that is all being left, and to highlight its beauty and understanding what it really is, the history behind it, and not cover it up. Coming down through, this is the connector. In order to meet the height of this, Unit 1's second floor is extremely high. So in order to meet this without having to elevate the entire building, which of course would have cost more money, we are providing a ramp between the connector as well, so that you'll have a slight incline through here. We'll have a little landing right there and a ramp down again. And it's all connected to lights, some loss of natural light into this area. So then this is just looking from the corner. As soon as you walk up and turn around the stairs, you can see you'll be able to have a really grand view of the existing building, looking out into the street and throughout what's going on too. So and then this right here,
Can I interrupt?
you bet.
One of the things I want you to be mindful of as you look at this kind of 3D virtual tour here is that one thing is missing, one element is missing in this whole thing, and that is the furniture, the commons area, where these students will actually sit, where they'll lounge, where they'll eat their lunch and gather and things of that nature. We showed you the permanent concrete benches and where they'll go, but in all these main corridor areas, we will also have furniture where they can sit, small tables and things of that nature. So just be mindful of that as you look at this. It looks kind of like empty or kind of open, but imagine that filled with students and with chairs and places where they can gather and
Right.
do that.
And that's something that we'll be working with the school district on. We won't be providing the furniture, telling you what furniture to purchase. We would just, be helping provide layouts to say, hey, we recommend, furniture go here and here. And then that's up to you guys to go and back and purchase what type of furniture you feel is best for current and future uses.
Can you address the safety issues of the glass?
You bet. So let's go to the 3D. So there's lots of glass all over, right? So that was part of the idea that went through. There has been concern, of course, there's always concern whenever there's glasses, the access of it, how easily it can break. Also, if there is ever an event in which there's a shooter or coming into it, all the glass on the lower area is going to be a special type of glass that is extremely impact resistant and will require a significant amount of time in order to get through. Granted, any amount of glass can get broken into an amount of force. However, this is a glass that is designed that's laminated so that you don't have to have that issue. Well, it'll last longer. The services will be able to provide backup by then. Or if there's anything going on, that it'll last long enough. Security-wise, there is going to be control through the entire area. One of the items that for this addition is that to connect the entire campus. Currently, students come in and out of the buildings all the time. There's lots of entry points into the building, and being able to connect all the buildings allows us to have much more control over the entire building. So everything is going to be locked down as it is now, but the students don't have to come in and out as often. So there's going to be a control access here on the back side, right here, and then this access right here. So basically, if you don't have an access card, you can't get in. And then Bart and Alan have been working with us and your guys' locksmith and the door hardware manufacturer to make sure that we get the proper access and security that is required. And then, of course, also which camera points you need to be. So that's what. Any other questions about the security?
While we were talking about windows, if you will, not on the security, but right there on the desk is kind of a sample of what the window will look like. Right there by your name tag, Mrs. Craner.
Oh, yeah.
So one of the things that we were able to do is to look at the current glass that exists in Unit 3, which is the Palace. The window that is there on the east side and other areas there over on the north side as well. So that glass panel there almost exactly mimics or duplicates what we have on the Palace. And so by the time you have the Palace and then this new Unit 4 here, the classroom with the other connecting area there, all that glass will be very, very consistent throughout the newer structures, the Palace, the Unit 4 and the walkway. It'll be different than Unit 1. and different than the auditorium glass, because we don't have that type of, what do you call it, the low E and kind of that color on there. It's more of a clear glass on the other ones, but it'll match throughout the whole front face there of Pocatello High School, so.
So, and you'll notice that there's 2 layers of glass on that. That's what they call an insulated glass. So you have the clear glass side is going to be on the inside of it. On the outside is the
gray.
darker tone, exactly the gray. And as Bart said, is we match it exactly. In the areas that are required to have more impact resistance, there's actually a extra laminate that's not on there that they put behind the darker gray glass that helps protect it. So.
One of the other things about that particular glass is it tends to reflect the light out, meaning that hopefully the commons area, it's more reflective to keep the heat out and that sort of a thing, so it will be a better environment within there. It won't take us quite so much to keep that cooled down or heated up, so.
So this is coming from the second floor. The main grand staircase is the left-hand side, and you'll see that this is the Unit 2. We're leaving all this brick. This is the restroom block right there. To get into the classroom block is through this door. We have a little pull-up area in which you can have the lunch come in, and they can have the carts they have right now, so they can wheel them in and out. Just another area. And you'll see coming up through here is our entry into the Unit 2, the 1960s edition, in which you're going into. Before we were coming through right here on the right-hand side, but now we are no longer doing that, being able to save that beautiful surface that we were talking about earlier. And this area, it's a wide area, but this is going to be, because down below on the second floor, we have the bench seating. Up here, we don't have the bench seating, but there's going to be furniture all along here, which students can gather. So, and then you'll notice, if you recall, we have this break all the way down that's offsetting from the building, so you can be able to see the entire Unit 2 up and down, respecting it, and also being able to provide natural light. What is you cannot see because of the structures right here. These are joists. These are actually what gray items are actually web steel joists, so you'll be able to see all the way through. But above these, what we're showing are skylights right here, a single pane skylight.
Yeah.
Single slope skylight that allow us to bring a lot of natural light down into it. So not only for the second floor, but with that light well opening that we have right here, it's going to be able to bring a lot of light down below onto the first floor as well.
It's really nice.
So that way it doesn't feel dark and dingy in there.
Talk about, that's why they got that railing picture up. Talk about the difference between those 2 railings that you saw in the first picture versus these ones.
Yeah. So one thing that we wanted to do, of course, is how do we bring some of these elements of the existing unit, older buildings into the new, but yet still give it a bit of a modern feel to it. So the railing that we had, in the previous railing you saw on this image right here, you'll see that, you have the wood but metal, but then there's like this graded pattern through it. We didn't want to do that. We want to bring something a little more sophisticated into it. So what we're doing is bringing up here on this upper area, we'll have that wood connector, and then this will be these metals, and these will be these rods similar to what was done on Unit 1 on the exterior as well. So it gives a little more sophisticated look than what we had with Thunder Ridge High School, which was just a kind of like a chicken coop pattern in a way. And then we'll paint this a gray, and then we'll have that really nice wood top, and then you'll have your color of the LVT flooring in through here as well. So this is looking on the back side. We were just looking at the doors going into Unit 1. This is imagine coming right out of those doors, coming into it and taking it right into the main staircase. On the left-hand side, you can see this is all the existing masonry work that we're leaving alone. You'll notice, though, that we are actually going to have to fill in these windows right here that for those existing classrooms. Right now, it's a tiny little window just on the bottom half, similar to what was done here. A long time ago, it used to be a big glass, but for energy purposes, they covered it up. But because of that 2-hour fire rating that we needed to do, the most cost-effective means to do so is just to match the existing brick and infill, similar to what was done on Unit 2 a long time ago with the locker rooms down below, which that was just all that glass was infilled. So even though we're losing a little bit of glass right here, we're still going to maintain that same look. And then we'll bring in some extra light in through here coming down as well. On the right-hand side, you'll be able to see that. So this is coming into the unit 4. This is that classroom corridor on the second floor. You can see on the left-hand side as the stairs down into the first floor of the classroom block. This right here is going to be a storage into the chem prep area. This is the chemistry block down here. Looking straight ahead, you'll notice we have a lot of glass coming in. We want to bring a lot of natural light that, kind of guides people down into the corridor. And this becomes a collaboration zone. So it can be a little room which students or teachers can gather and have a small private group in which they can study and get together. And then we have our standard classrooms, science classrooms on the right-hand side as well. And then the last images I have is coming from Unit 1 on the second floor. You'll see on our left-hand side as our elevator block, and then the ramp down, coming down into it, and then we have our grand staircase on the left-hand side. So those are all the prepared views that I have. I can go through and show you anything else that you want. If you want, I can cut things down. I can show you a floor plan, or I can just answer questions.
Looks pretty impressive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's everything we've asked for.
So where we're at right now with our construction documents, we are hoping to wrap them up before Christmas, but that never happens. We're about 95% done with our construction documents. We're getting ready to do our last conformance set with our consultants, with our engineers, in which we'll be coordinating everything. So they're going to be getting us their drawings. We make sure that everything that we're drawing versus what they're drawing is not conflicting, that everything that's required within the drawings are within it. And so once we get that, we mark it up and send it back to them, and they finalize it. And then once we do that, and we get all the drawings and the specifications written, then we'll go into the city of Pocatello and submit and wait for the review. And then once that occurs, then we can go advertise for a bid and go through the bid process.
I do have one question on
Yes.
the Unit 4, the new one,
Uh-huh.
at the east side. Is that a door at the bottom? You
Right
showed
here?
Uh-huh,
Yes, it is.
that is door.
Correct. Yep. So we will have a
That's what-
door. It will have an electronic access. I guess Bart might be able to answer this. I don't know if the students will be able to access this during the school time or if you're going to keep that locked down. But that's something that they can code accordingly.
Yeah. I'm not sure exactly how we'll make that work right now, but it is an entrance exit door there, but whether or not we allow access to that or have them go to other main areas of the school,
Right.
we'll determine that with the administration of the school there, what works best.
Thank you, guys.
Yep, thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks
You
for the
got 2
opportunity.
weeks to do that before Christmas. Huh?
What's that?
2 weeks to do that before.
Oh, don't worry.
I just had to say that, I thought. I'm still dealing with 2 weeks till Christmas.
This is maybe an aside. So as we went up to Thunder Ridge, we went there for a couple of purposes. One is just to kind of get some ideas of what Hummel has done in the past in regard to some of the school facilities, to see how some of the facilities was being maintained, how it was enduring through student use and those sorts of things. And one of the things that was a little shocking to Alan and I as we stood up on the upper floor of Thunder Ridge, as we looked out over that school, there was no green space area out in front of the school. There was a few flower bed areas, there was a large parking lot area and those sorts of things, but you could tell that the lack of outdoor green space was absent. And they have, a football field, baseball fields, which they keep locked up. But what they have found is they have put together these schools, and they've done it the right way, is the students tend to stay in the schools more, and that they stay in these common areas, and that they don't require to be outside in some of these areas as much. Pocatello High School will have far more green space than Thunder Ridge High School has in Idaho Falls on the outside, minus the athletic areas. So that was kind of a little surprising to me, but it really kind of spoke to the fact that these common areas that we're developing and that we're implementing in Pocatello High School are going to be extensively used by students, and that's where they will end up gathering and staying and being with one another. So,
Well, and we help keep some of the aesthetic look with the green space that we're putting in or the.
Right,
between
on,
two
on the other
buildings.
side as well, correct.
And then back behind it some
Mhm.
too.
Right. So it should be wonderful when we get to that point. We're getting close, and I just wanted to kind of bring you up to date as far as where we're at in the overall process. So thank you for your time about this.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate you coming.
You
showing
bet.
us today.
Happy to do so.
Happy holidays.
Same to you.
Yes.
Bart, you ready to talk to us about the levy materials?
I am. All right. As you know, our 10-year school plant facility levy will be coming to the end of its term this next year. And we've talked with you as a school board in regard to our school plant facilities levy, and it is the recommendation of the administration to pursue another school plant facility levy and to have that renewed. We are looking at a time frame of March 10th, which would be the next election date that we could run a school plant facility levy. In regard to this levy specifically, there's a resolution there that would need to be approved and adopted by the board in order for us to hold the election and to move forward. In regard to this actual school plant facility levy, there are actually three different passage rates for a 10-year school plant facility levy. One rate is 55%, the other is 60%, and the other one is 67%. Because our levy rate would stay under 0.2%, you have to combine the school plant facility levy and any bond levy that you have, and currently we do not have a bond levy. And so combining those two levies, we're estimating about 0.14 or 1.4% of that levy rate. So that's well under that 2%, 0.2%, excuse me, is what I'm trying to say. So this levy is proposing that we would go out for a passage rate of 55%. So it would require 55% votes plus one in order to pass. And by state law, we have to identify the levy amount for each of those 10 years, which we have done in the past. I might remind the board and the public that we have now had a school plant facility levy in our district consecutively for 6 decades or 60 years, and this will be the 70-year term, if you will, of a school plant facility levy. We have chosen to maintain the increment of 5% each year on that levy, which this levy can only be used for construction, renovation, and maintenance of our facilities. And so as you have an opportunity to travel throughout our schools, whether they're some of our older buildings or some of our newer buildings, you probably have seen that they are very well maintained. That is what this levy does specifically, and we've been very grateful to our community and to our patrons that they have seen, I guess, the wisdom of having a school plant facility levy and maintaining our facilities. We have only gone out for a bond levy once in the last 20 years. And before that, I think it was 20 years before that, before we had another bond. And so we have been able to do a lot of things with our school plant facility funds by reserving some of those funds aside that we don't need at the present time and doing future projects. We've done elevator additions. We did Alameda Middle School renovation for $2.5 million instead of building a new middle school that would have cost us probably $40 million to do. So we, I think, have been very prudent in how we've used these dollars and in maintaining our facilities, and this is what we are proposing for the next 10 years for the Pocatello Chubbuck School District. This is a county election, so all the elections are run through the county. And it is a simple yes or no vote in regard to passing or not passing this election. So with that,
Mr. Grant, could you talk about the taxable
sure.
amount per $100,000, please?
I did not. Is that on this documentation that you have?
Yeah, I think it was.
Oh, on the resolution? All right, thank you.
It's on there too, actually.
It's this purple block, isn't it?
Yeah, it's on there too in the purple.
Where's it at?
In
The purple block.
with that envelope.
I wonder if I don't have it in my packet. I do not see it, but let me look here. Do you have the information? I'm sorry,
Yeah,
because I
so-
did not see it.
We do, but just for those in attendance or those watching, it's approximately $11.80.
Oh, here it is. I see it right now. Yes. It's,
Per 100,000.
Uh-huh. Per month, per 100,000.
on a $100,000 taxable value, $141 per year, or that amount that you mentioned per month.
You know, this is what concerns me truly
Okay.
with this is, I looked at that and I thought, and I'm averaging $200,000 homes,
Mm-hmm.
you know, which is low, really. You know, I guess it's maybe median, I don't know. But anyway, so that's like $300 more a year out of 200,000.
Not necessarily
Well-
more per year because we already have a current school plant facility levy.
Well,
So,
I'm thinking you said annual estimated cost to taxpayer would be $141.62.
mhm.
So I doubled that is that not how it works?
It's
No.
also, you have to include the tax exemption too. Because if your average home is $200,000 and you have a $100,000
Tax
exemption,
exemption.
it's just-
So let me, what you're saying is correct. If you were to buy a home for the first time and move in, then you could expect what you're talking about there. But if you are currently a homeowner or a property owner right now, this levy has been in place now for the last 10 years and prior to that for 50 years.
Mm-hmm.
So this levy rate is already, I'll just say built in or already part of your total tax bill that you have, your tax obligation. And so this isn't like a new levy, it's an existing levy, just moving forward.
Built in. This doesn't mean additional cost.
That is correct.
It's already built in. Okay.
There would be the increase of the 5% that we have done every year for the last at least 30 years that I know of. So that would be in there. But I'd also like to mention that 2 years ago, we took off or we paid off all of our general obligation debt for Century High School and Pocatello High School, which was a $26.5 million debt service payment that we had. And so those fell off 2 years ago, and this has just maintained. So it's not a new levy, it's not a new tax necessarily. There would be some increment in there, but not to the
not
extent that
dramatic.
you're saying.
Okay, I was
That
worried
makes it
because,
A little more
you know,
palatable.
everybody
Yes.
just got, I mean, my neighborhood people, $600, $800, $1,000, $1,200 tax increase from the county,
Right.
which everybody's upset about. You know, so if we came out, I thought if we come out with another 300, but now that you say this is already built in and it will be some, but nothing like that.
Right, and if I could add to what you just said, our actual tax levy rate, which is the amount per $100,000 that you are assessed for property taxes, for school district 25 is actually gone down.
Right, and I know.
So it has not gone up, it's gone down. So we've been very sensitive to that with taxpayers in our community, and we have tried not to impose any additional taxes through the district that we would need to do unless they are absolutely necessary. But our actual tax rate should actually be less rather than more.
Right,
It'd
and-
be really important to get that across.
right, because I don't
We-
want to confuse people
Advertising.
when they see this thinking, oh, they're going to have to pay.
Right, and we can neither promote nor, we can't encourage people to vote for or against, but we can share information, and that's an important that's an important fact, information that does need to be shared, absolutely.
Because if that confused me, you know, I know people are gonna be thinking the same thing, and so I just want them to realize that this is already built into what.
We will be very clear about that. That will be part of our presentation as we go out and visit with civic groups or the community or various organizations that would like to know about this.
You know, because.
Sounds good.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you. So this would be on the agenda for you to approve so that we can move forward in meeting the deadline dates and those sorts of things in our next meeting. So,
We
or let's see,
don't-
is it in this meeting here? Next week,
week.
yes.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
I can lead out. And just from our visit to Idaho School Boards Association meeting and convention, we had discussed in our regional meeting how the elections of officers worked, in that it is a large district and then small district and
That's
then
our regional meeting.
right, and then it's alternating. But in the main body, that same bylaw does not exist. And so as we came out of there, Mrs. Craner, I know, shared with me, and I think others at our table.
I shared with a number of people.
Yes, and then there was an election, and as it stands, I believe all of the general officers of the body are from smaller districts.
Small districts or charter.
Or
Or
charter.
charters.
Uh-huh, yeah.
Well, and I can't remember her name, who ran for Nancy from Boise. Is she from Boise or Ada?
Yes.
Boise. And I visited with her about this because I was frustrated at ISBA convention for the fact that for at least 3 years, and probably longer, it's our executive leadership has always been small districts or charters. And I was concerned over the one resolution we voted on, that they made a recommendation, which I thought was inappropriate. I thought they should have just made no recommendation, and that was about the charter school.
Cap on charter
Cap.
schools.
Yeah.
Using
Cap.
the
Yeah.
population.
And I thought they should have stayed neutral and not made one, because basically that affects really large districts, you know. And so I was feeling like we're not really getting representation from that executive committee for large districts, which really frustrates me, you know. And then we can't get them voted in because we have this, even when you add up, and Renee posted all that, when you add all that up, we're somewhat overpowered between the extra larger districts with voting things, you know. So and I know when I talked to Nancy, she said that they had a audit done of their bylaws and everything that came from the National School Board Association. And they said that that particular bylaw, that they needed to amend that because that wasn't right,
Yeah.
you know. And so this I kind of wanted to do to let them know that, and I already expressed my opinion too.
So did this come from us or from them?
No, this is from us.
Oh, okay.
This is from us.
It's
you
funny
know.
because I had spoken with Ann Ritter, she has a background in law, and we were talking about a similar sort of thing, saying
Yeah.
it needs to be fixed.
And
But we were also talking about not just large and small, because we were talking also about representation from across the state. All the representation right now is on the western side of the state. That's another part of the problem.
you know, and we could maybe put that in a separate resolution, you know, I mean, or something. I would like to see this part at least, you know, go to them, because I think we're really not being represented well. And so I think ISBA does a vital work for the children of the state, and I don't want to not be a part of it. But I do think that where we're paying, you know, membership dues and everything, that they need to address our needs as well. And I really felt like that didn't happen at ISBA convention, as far as when that resolution came up, you know, and even having just some representation there, I think it's just important. It's the same.
I'm sure that there'll be other bylaw changes sent to them after their meetings, other large.
Well,
district meetings.
I hope so. I don't know. I know I talked to Nancy about it there, and we were saying that that's how we have to approach it, is to change the bylaws. But this is a beginning, and for us to do this, and
If we're
when
gonna do it, I agree that this is a part of it, but I also think that we need to represent the whole state and not just the west side. And so you can, in the same place, put that there needs to be an alternation, that was the right word, so that we're representing across the state, not just the west side.
So Renee, can
We can
just
touch
add
up the
that?
letter to include two elements, both of those. And I agree, Mrs. Gephardt, and even in the State Board of Education,
Oh,
we won't
Thank
bring
you.
that up.
the
But,
newspaper hit that today. so-
Yes, yeah, and it's true. And so we want to be represented both in our district size as well as region.
And I
So-
would kind of not put them together. I would list it as two
Yes,
things.
two separate, one, two.
Separate things,
Mhm.
because
Absolutely.
I think, I would approach it that way. I think it would be easier to get the bylaws changed.
Okay,
So
we will
we
look
approach
at
it as two
a
things.
revision to this draft document that you have here, incorporating both of those elements, and bring it back to you next week.
Okay.
Okay.
Tanya, you're up. Oh, and Sue.
You get both of us.
Okay.
How are you guys?
Well,
Are we talking about comments first?
Nope, transfer policy first.
All right. I know that we've had some concerns, and I don't think, especially being new to this position and all the different concerns that's been brought to me since July with our transfer policy, that we'll ever write one that's gonna fit everything. But, it's the perception, and, I've investigated it, and it is truly just a perception. And so we have expressed and talked to administrators on tightening down the transfer policy even further. But after further investigation, you do need to know that I called Meridian School District, Boise School District, Bonneville, Idaho Falls, and Twin Falls, and nobody else has a transfer policy as strict as ours, other than with academics. So with that being said, all of our administrators are in favor of this new transfer, wording, language, taking out.
Highlight some of that for us.
Oh,
Ms. Williams.
do you guys
And
have
by
this?
administrators, do you mean like athletic directors or just administrators?
Just
The high school,
administrators.
the high school administrators.
High
Yeah.
school administrators,
Mhm.
okay.
Not all the athletic directors. If you look at policy, let me grab my glasses off my head here. 8106, if you recognize that we, on the second page, had taken off the incoming ninth grade students who submit an open enrollment transfer application prior to the February 1st deadline, then they can participate in sports if the school has open enrollment. And right now, currently, it has been that Pocatello High School has room, and it's open enrollment, and Century and Highland has been full, so we do not have. But it's state policy that we have open enrollment. If there's room, then it is an opportunity for students to go there.
So in the past, if a ninth grader has applied for open enrollment and the transfer has been approved, they've been able to go to the high school and participate in athletics and activities.
Correct.
The request is that we take that off, that if they don't go to their boundary school, they have to sit for 365, no matter when they ask for the transfer.
we worked
And that
on this
request-
Yes.
2 years ago, I thought we
Several times.
handled this. Yeah.
Several times. So the high school administrators would like to see it locked down so that if you transfer, it's at 365. We would be the only district that we know of to do that. And so my question to you is, do you want to do that? Or if the ninth graders apply during open enrollment and it's approved, then they can participate in athletics that first year.
With that
And-
time frame.
And that's what we've been doing for the last several years.
For ninth
Is,
For
Yes,
ninth
for
graders.
ninth grade only.
Mhm.
for ninth grade only, we've been letting them play or not letting them?
Letting them play.
Letting them
If they
play.
meet the open enrollment deadline
Yes,
and their transfer is approved, then they can
We've
participate.
been letting them.
Mhm.
yes,
And now they want to change that to not let them.
Correct.
correct.
The balance between the schools,
Mhm.
concerned with 3 years ago.
Correct.
Correct. It's much closer.
Like next year, it'll probably, all schools will be that way.
Well, it'll
We
be
jumped
even
down here,
closer.
this is-
And that's what we're asking you guys.
We don't know the numbers right now for next year, so that
But
we,
it's
But it is
it has
definitely
been- it
getting
has
to
been
that
balancing.
limit, yeah.
And that was our goal.
And we have one more year of the sibling rule, one more.
One more year.
So if we get it more balanced, this problem will kind of take care of itself, right?
Correct, it wouldn't be open enrollment at its
See,
schools.
which was our hope.
And the other thing that I guess I feel about it is that it is, the way the policy sits, it would target Pocatello High School more than any other of our schools. And I don't want to make a policy that is discriminatory against one school.
Well, it's not really discriminate, it actually
is.
benefits them.
It's
and
benefiting them.
It benefits
If we locked the
them.
boundaries and kids had to go to their exact boundaries, Highland would lose 100 kids and Pokey would gain 100
Gain
kids.
100 kids. Yeah, that's what I
Within,
thought.
within 5 to 10 kids everywhere else. But Pokey would gain 100 and Highland would lose 100.
So currently, Pokey is the only school that isn't full at this time. So if an 8th grader chose to go to Pokey, then the understanding was that they wouldn't be penalized by sitting 365
If they met open
because it
enrollment.
was open enrollment. What that has created is this perception that if you want to play
Together
at
as a
Pokey,
team.
yeah, as a club team or so forth, then we could go to Pokey because it's open.
So
I
it
think-
has,
Yeah, Ms. Brooks has hit it right on the head right there.
that's
That's
the
ultimately it.
issue with it.
Yes.
And right now,
It
it's
is.
created that particular problem that
Correct.
we're gonna send our whole team here, and
Correct.
it's not through the schools, it's through private
Correct.
things, you know. But
And so to some degree, that could be considered an advantage. And because when there is capacity met at both Highland and Century, then that leaves Pocatello as the opportunity. Let me
getting
just
the
phrase it that way.
advantage.
For
So
students,
that's why it's
yes.
not
Uh-huh.
targeting, I mean,
It is.
it's not hurting them, but, you know. My hope, though, is that if we get these stabilized, our enrollment stabilized, which I think in the next couple of years,
That we'd
it-
say, no, you just go to the school you belong to, period.
Well,
no, I just say
to
leave it
the-
alone.
No, the statement that was made is open enrollment has to be there.
it's state law that if there's
Yeah.
room, but if there's
But
a
not for
balance.
athletics.
But the issue is the 365
Correct,
eligibility rule.
correct.
So nobody in the state at a freshman level, if there's open enrollment, not another school in the state makes the athlete sit 365.
So do the other states, do the other districts you talk to have this problem with schools?
They do at Meridian. Meridian has 2 schools that are full and 3 that are not. So the 3 schools that are not, obviously, if you go to open enrollment, they could choose Eagle and not have to sit 365. They could not choose Rocky Mountain or Mountain View just because they're
They're
full.
full.
hmm
So
But the
how do they
AD
feel?
actually said that helps them just because they're so full that
But
sometimes
it
the
helps
flow of kids.
distribute the
Mhm.
kids.
Yes.
But the issue becomes, once they become full, they can't,
Correct.
it's not gonna work.
Correct.
We can still do open enrollment. If there's space,
Right.
we can grant open enrollment. If there's no space in those schools, then we cannot grant open enrollment.
So my feeling is, leave it alone, don't change it. I mean,
Are you
that's my,
saying leave 365 or take it away?
no, well, we can't.
Leave it as it's written right now.
We can't change the, open enrollment policy.
No, that's state law.
And this is changing it so that we have, 365, sit 365.
Correct.
And for those reasons that we've just stated, but no other district does that but us. No
Or
other.
would-
I'm
would
confused
do
about
it.
what you're saying. I'm asking,
She's saying if they choose to go, then they do not have to sit 365.
Which is the way it is right now.
Correct.
As long as there's room in
That school.
Yeah.
school.
that's cool.
Right,
Which is-
which is way it is right now. What was being proposed was lock that down. And
And
That's-
it's.
And even though-
Administrators are saying lock it down, but how long, I mean,
right,
how long would we need to do that? And I think if nobody else does it,
nobody else
I
does it.
don't think we should be doing it either.
And see, and our whole change the boundary thing was to help solve this problem, which it is
Doing
It
it.
is
Helping.
doing.
Yeah.
But we have to give it another year or two to really
We have one
Do
more
what
year of
we want.
sibling.
Yeah.
Mhm.
It is
This is the last
creating
year
the
of
same
sibling.
issue that we created boundaries for, but it's unique. I mean, it's very unique to what we're going through right now with Pokey having the space.
Can we live through it another year?
Well, you can see why some administrators don't want it to happen. Well, you know, because they don't like to see it just all become about athletics, but what do you do? And I don't know, I just personally feel like no other district does it. They have to deal with the same issues. They don't do it, it penalizes the kid somewhat, you know, and yet it does give advantage.
In truth, reality,
To a
when
school that still has room, does give athletic advantage to a school.
And they
Still
have been
has room.
disadvantaged
Absolutely.
for a long time.
So I just say leave it alone and not put in this athletic, 365 athletic penalty. That's my feeling, but.
Mine as well.
I know the only
You guys
district
need
that
to-
tried to put some boundaries on transfer was Bonneville, and they got rid of it just because it becomes so, there's holes in the language, and everybody comes up with all kinds of exceptions, which it's tough. It's really tough. But I feel like with the sibling rule being in effect one more year, we don't want to change the whole policy.
Yeah.
No. And
I think
that's
we leave it
exactly
like it
why
is
we
then.
Okay.
We did the boundary issues because we knew we had a school that needed,
Yeah, as Ms. Wilkes pointed out, it's a perception, and as she's talked with their athletic directors and administrators, we don't feel that is internal pressure coming from our coaches or any staff members per se, but just the pressure that within families or, as she's mentioned, club teams. And so I think that's where this came from. And so we were just looking to address that. And when the board wanted to, tighten it down and not have any unfair advantages, that was the question or the concern that was presented. Does this allow that little opportunity or advantage for someone, last year, this current year, and next year, essentially 3 years? That's, I think, the concern that's being presented. And is there an opportunity here? And we can bring it to you for a first reading next week, so you don't have to decide today, and then give you an opportunity. And if you decline to hear that on first reading, then we'll know at that point that we'll not move it forward for a second reading, rather than for you, because we don't have any action on this today. It was just a discussion item.
Right.
And so I think, as Mrs. Craner pointed out, what she would like to see it left in place, but, and that's based upon the language that says will not be subject to an athletic penalty.
Correct.
Yeah, so that would be leaving it as it is. As we were ready to present it, we have that section in the blue,
Correct.
which would
Taken-
tighten it down and say, whether building's at capacity or not.
they would have
Yeah,
to.
and again, the administrators met and athletic directors, and that was their direction for us. We moved it forward, and then we'll present it to the board next
So
week.
they want us to add the athletic penalty.
That's what I
The
gathered.
principals, the athletic directors don't all agree with that, but the
Okay.
principals.
All right, that's good to know. Thank you for the clarification.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I maybe jumped out and
Yep, nope, you're
misspoke
good.
there.
Okay.
Okay, so we'll bring it to you next week,
Mhm.
and we'll have it on the agenda, and then let you make a determination at that point.
'Kay.
Okay.
Sue, you're excused.
Thank you.
Are we going to talk about helmets now?
Yes, we are.
Okay. So the IHSAA rule was every third year, we have our helmets reconditioned. Now it's every second year, so it's really increased the fees for reconditioning and buying helmets and so forth. So I tried to break it down just a little bit with, if a student bought their own helmet, it's, are you guys looking at the same page I am with the bullets? Okay, so it's about $350 for a helmet. Reconditioning every 2 years is about $150, approximately $75 for reconditioning, so $500 for a 4-year if you were playing for 4 years. If the school charged $75 for those 4 years, you're looking at $300, so the school has purchased the helmets. This has added a substantial increase to our schools, and so we would like to increase currently we charge the students a reconditioning fee of $50, and we'd like to increase that to $75.
Do the students they don't have the option of buying their own? do
They can buy their own helmet, and there's pretty strict policies behind that. We have to keep the helmet for them, store
They
it,
have different helmets,
and
don't they?
make
Like
them
some
recondition.
Don't they wear one helmet in some games?
but
Oh,
they,
no, they just change it. They change the colors. No.
Okay.
they can buy their own helmet. But we have to store them so that we can monitor them and recondition them, so they'd have to pay for that.
They'd have to still pay for the reconditioning.
Expensive too.
Helmets are expensive.
And you did a nice job, and maybe you could just take us quickly through the chart there at the bottom.
So
Just to give us an
currently, right,
idea
I did
What the school.
the last 3 years, what we've collected with $50 reconditioning fee and what we spent, and the difference that the programs have to come up with, and this is through fundraising and sponsorships and so forth. It is a huge fee for this. The $50 doesn't cover the reconditioning and the
Replacement.
well, we have to buy new helmets every 4 years, yeah. So, $75 will not cover it all either, but it'll help us quite a bit, especially with now we have to recondition them every second year instead of every third year.
Why is it so much more expensive for Pokey than it is for Highland, for example?
Pokey,
More expensive.
It's not more expensive.
If you look at 2017,
mhm.
what was collected was almost $5,000 and spent was $5,200. So
It-
there's just a difference of $255. But if you look at the same line for Pokey, collected was $3,703, spent was $5,791 for
Could have been purchasing helmets. So like this year, if you look at Pokies, it's substantially lower. They did not purchase any new helmets. They just reconditioned.
But then next year they'll have to.
Yeah, they'll have to purchase some more, yes. Does that make sense? If you notice it, Pokey collected 3,700, spent 5,700, collected 3,400, spent 6,000, so forth. This year, collected 3,500, but only spent 16 because we didn't buy new helmets this year for Pocatello High School.
So what's the participation fee? Is that
It's 100 and, for the first sport is 120.
first sport's 120?
Mhm.
So they have 120, then if we change to 75 on helmet reconditioning. I know they have
200.
spirit packs. I know they have spirit packs, which are what?
I have an athlete that plays 3 sports. I could tell you in
Like
detail.
spirit packs are how much? At least,
It depends on the sport, yeah.
What's a
at least
spirit pack
60.
then?
Spirit
Oh,
pack would be
they're-
gear, so there's
T-shirts,
sweats,
shorts,
yeah.
socks, that sort of
Yeah.
thing. Uh-huh.
And
There's,
they all have to have them when they get doing that. So,
Okay.
so we're looking at like $250 to play football.
and I know the teams do a really good job at giving opportunities for kids to fundraise, with the oranges and potatoes and so forth. So there's opportunities,
Mhm.
but
And we're hoping to narrow those down just
Yes.
a little bit. Ms. Wilkes is working on this with our athletic directors.
to do more
do m-
together, so that,
More of a community-wide, we hit you up once and not 6 times for every sport
Yeah.
based upon, the number of
I just think we
schools.
need to do something like that, because it's
Right.
getting out of
Uh-huh,
control for, especially what if the kid's in 3 sports,
mhm,
said,
right.
or what if this family has 4 kids?
right,
I mean, it just becomes,
Yeah.
becomes astronomical, so.
right.
So we're
And
hoping
we're
to-
doing lots of things to help with that as well. But with this, the IHSAA, rules changing, it was
Right.
just substantial. And we just
Well,
want to
What
help.
you can do about that.
Yeah, I
Mhm.
think it's
And,
something
know-
we'll have to do,
Well,
but,
and if
Yeah.
it's about reducing concussions, I have to support it, so.
Yes,
well, and it's not only that, I know, I've known kids that have gotten infections, from, they haven't been reconditioned
mhm,
or
clean.
done, cleaned and done, and that's that's exactly what the doctors have told them, it's come from their
Right.
helmets.
Mr. Reed, with this increase, do we have to put that out for public comment because it's greater than 5 or 10%. Yeah, okay. So this was just general information, discussion, opportunity for you to ask questions, but we'll bring it back to you in a special meeting for an opportunity for public to comment as well.
Yeah, I can see you don't have much choice here, but
Yeah.
it is good to hear that they're trying to do.
And it's just really, I mean, it's really transparent that we don't ever make money off of that.
Yeah.
It just helps balance it a little bit. We still have to do fundraising to help balance it.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Are you gonna be around?
Now it's,
I need to ask you a question
on the
later.
agenda, it's time for public comment, and I've received one from Eric Stewart. Would you like to come up, please?
Chairman Mattson, members of the board, members of the administration. I've completed my home visits to 6,490 homes in Zone 3 as a result of the visits. I've compiled a list of compliments and concerns for patrons in Zone 3, and I'm presenting that to you for your consideration. That concludes my comments.
Renee, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, now it's time for us to adjourn the work session and convene a special meeting for action to consider approving the purchase and sale agreement between the Pocatello Neighborhood Housing Service and the Pocatello Chubbuck District Number 25 Board of Trustees, which will be presented by Bart. There you are.
Do you need a motion to leave into that?
Motion yet, or you're gonna talk to us first?
Yeah, it's.
We have to have a motion to recess or
No.
adjourn.
He just
Okay.
adjourned the work session, convened the special meeting, and.
So we're okay?
And we're okay.
All right, very good. Thank you. As you know, we have been moving down the path here the past several months in relation to selling former Bonneville Elementary School to NeighborWorks, which is a government agency who deals with housing and is a very good community partner in Pocatello. We initially entered into an agreement with them to allow them to go through and do some due diligence and to look at the property, which they have been doing. And last week, they presented us a purchase and sale agreement, which you have before you in your packet, which outlines some of the various conditions in regard to the sale of that property. This purchase and sale agreement is tentative from the standpoint that it still allows NeighborWorks to, for 60 days, to go in and do their due diligence, get some bidding, and they will deposit a $10,000 earnest money with the title company, and for the purchase price of the property of $250,000. All of those are things that we have talked about previously, and I think that you were aware of. The one thing that is a little different is typically with an agreement such as this, the earnest money would be forfeited at the end of the purchase and sale agreement if the proposed buyer did not move forward with purchasing this property. This agreement is written that earnest money would be returned to NeighborWorks. They are another government agency. As I mentioned, they are a good community partner. And they also have allowed us as a school district to go into Bonneville and to strip out, if you will, or to remove the fire alarm system, the security alarm system, and any of those types of alarm systems that we can continue to use in our various schools for additional supplies and parts and replacement. So I think that we feel good in working together cooperatively, of them allowing us to remove those equipment, which is far exceeds $10,000, by the way, just so that you know, if they did not move forward. If you were to ask me my opinion, I believe that they are moving forward full strength to make this happen. I think that they are very anxious that this will be a great project for them personally as NeighborWorks in our community, and we know that the Bonneville Neighborhood Association is very anxious to see this happen as well. So unless you have specific questions, this would go for 60 days. And then if they let us know that they wanted to execute the purchase of this property, then we would go to closing and do that within a couple of weeks or so, whenever we could get that scheduled. So this agreement, the 60 days would go into effect today if the board approved this purchase and sale agreement and we executed it. So that's when the time frame would start to run.
I just wanted to share a thought with you from last week, Chamber of Commerce all-member meeting. Mr.
Dahlquist.
Dahlquist was the program on behalf of NeighborWorks, and this was one of the slides that he had incorporated into his presentation, as well as a follow-up slide to show some a similar project that they had done elsewhere in the state, not through Pocatello Group, but I think it was Boise, Treasure Valley area. And it looked very similar to me to be like the Aspen, I think it is, the Aspen complex or something, where the old Fraser's market used to be.
Right.
And so that's what he shared with our community folks that were attended that meeting. So as far as the earnest money, as Bart pointed out, I mean, they are another government agency. And I think unless those bids for, because they had those bids completed to remove everything a few months back, and he was concerned that perhaps they might change slightly, but nothing significant.
Their biggest question is just the raising of that building, meaning tearing it down, doing the demo work, and having everything hauled off.
That always seems like a contradiction to me, the raising of a building.
Exactly, it is.
Taken down.
Not spelled the same way.
Well,
Oh, is that it? Okay. It just sounds crazy.
Well,
Okay.
you know,
I've never
I'm-
looked into that.
I was somewhat confused because I thought like they'd done all this.
They have done some preliminary work, but you know, it's like if I said to you, Mrs. Craner, what would you charge me to tear down such and such a building? And you kind of said, well, I guess it would be about this. And then I come back to you a little bit later and say, I really want you to do that. And then you say, well, I need to sharpen my pencil, and just because that was just an estimate. So they're actually looking at formally getting bids to do this. So they've done their homework, but now they are actually entertaining formal bids, I believe, to make sure that it falls within their scope and their cost estimates to make this work.
Well, I guess I was surprised when I saw that the stipulation about giving them back their earnest money. I've never heard of doing that before, you know. And they were $10,000 below our other bid we had, you know. So
But they did come back up.
they what?
They did come back up
They
from their
can.
previous offer too.
They did.
Yeah.
Because of the abatement.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah,
right.
so they did.
Because they went down to 240. That's right.
So that's what I say. I think in good faith that they are wanting to make this work. They're concerned about spending money that if it comes in, let's say double than what they thought it would be of spending money that they're using to benefit the community. And so, and you know, the fortunate part, again, I'll just reemphasize this, is that they did allow us, and I mentioned this to him from the very beginning of our conversations, they did allow us the opportunity to go in and to take out those security alarm systems and fire alarm systems, which there's a considerable amount of equipment still in there as far as just the actual devices and those sorts of things that will benefit the district. So
Are they going to continue to let us use the other building until they
we,
raise?
They're gonna be gone, aren't they?
Well,
It's
I'm-
all gone.
so I can speak to that question. We have been working the past several months. Maintenance and operations has been putting in a lot of time and effort to move our professional development
Okay.
learning center from Bonneville
You moved it
to Gateway.
Gateway.
And we are anticipating that will be completed by the end of next week with a few minor little details or tasks that need to be done. It's we've cleaned it, we've repainted it, we've made that into the new professional. I think it's going to be called Gateway Learning Center. Is that correct? Professional Learning Center.
Chuck is back there to.
So that has been completed, and so when we need to get out of there, we'll certainly be ready to do that. So we've already made those preparations in anticipation that this is moving forward.
Do you need a motion, sir?
I am. I would entertain a motion to approve the purchase and sale agreement as presented. Is there a motion?
I so move.
I'll second it.
Okay, any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Hearing all in the affirmative, that motion is passed, and this concludes this meeting. I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
I
Is there
move
a
we
motion?
adjourn.
I'll second it.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, we're out of here. And I hereby declare us adjourned.
My husband said he was reading on the One Journal webpage and that we're all too old to be here making decisions on this.
He said,
Did you read that? That we're all too old to be making decisions for here.